The last 2 weeks of very positive feedback on Pinot Pixel, the postings, the English wine tour, and the reactions on our talk last week on the Alcohol-Free Wine Fest inspired me to record this episode on how important feedback is for us as human beings and also for a brand. So the idea of this episode is to give you some strategies how to react on positive and especially negative feedback, and even more so, how to deal with shitstorms. Some people are really struggling with reacting, especially on negative feedback. This is why I tried to wrap up these strategy in one episode. Additional tip: if you don't know how to answer to a comment that was left on your Instagram, on Google, on YouTube, try Chat GPT. Seriously. Train Chat GPT on how it should react, provide the feedback, and then see the magic happen. It's really interesting. And for me, this would always be the first step. If you are not an empathetic person and you're really struggling giving feedback, it's normal, guys. It's not a bad thing. Being candid is difficult. Being candid and kind at the same time is even more so. Please, if you're not able to do that, try ChatGPT, and for the rest, listen to this episode. Have fun. Welcome to the Pinot Pixel podcast episode number 211. This is your podcast episode with the go-to strategies if you are experiencing good or even worse, negative feedback. So if you don't know how to react on negative feedback and dealing with shitstorms, this is your episode. And for those of you who are curious and maybe want to have this present a little while longer, I put it in a blog article on my Pinot Pixel blog. Link is in the show notes. It's pinotpixel.medium.com. Technically, it's a summary of this episode in a written way. How to deal with customer feedback and turn it into opportunities is the title, and this is also what this episode is all about. And I'm trying to give you some strategies how to deal with criticism. But first of all, we have to clarify, why is it so important to deal with feedback? Because feedback is sometimes, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? On the one hand, it's super cool to use it as an opportunity to grow your brand, to listen to your customers. Dealing with constructive criticism could really have a very positive impact on your brand. And on the other side, it could also be very, very difficult. And sometimes brands really fuck it up to answer to shitstorms and to negative feedback, and it really influences their reputation in a bad way. Feedback is important. Try to be selective and take constructive criticism, especially to work on your brand, to work on your product. And this selection is very important because there will be so many people that are currently being in a bad mood, just leaving feedback. And there's also ways to deal with this. We will do this later on in the episode. But in the beginning, it's more about the constructive criticism. And it's very important, especially as a big brand, to react on that. And feedback is a very powerful weapon to improve your products, to improve your services, to engage with your audience and build trust with you and the brand, and to reinforce your brand's values and mission. The examples we will talk about during this episode, links are all in the show notes and in the blog article, and I will share some of them because it was a lot of fun to research all these projects and marketing campaigns, and they are really the blueprint for everything what you could do as a brand or as a person reacting on feedback. Especially categories such as vegan food, alcohol-free drinks, or alternatives to coffee often experience a lot of criticism, skepticism, and what usually is behind is not that people tried those products, but more like people being afraid of losing something. I can tell you, especially when I have wine tastings, I always, especially when it comes to wine and dines, I always have an alcohol version and an alcohol-free food pairing version on the menu. And sometimes the people are open-minded and curious and want to try the alcohol-free products. And some say, no, I just want to stick with wine. This is the good way in a tasting like this. Sometimes people get even aggressive, saying, get away with that shit. It's such a crappy stuff. I want my alcohol. And nobody wants to steal your alcohol. It's more about showing alternatives, especially for the people who cannot, who don't want to drink alcohol, in brackets, anymore. I mean, I get it. Sometimes it also triggers people because they discover either in this moment or maybe even in the past, they have discovered that they might have a problem with that. And it's not only alcohol, sometimes it's also the consumption of sugar, of meat. Everything that humanity knows through science to research might not be the best anymore for you as a human being or even for us as a society. To be as close as possible to your brand, if you're listening and you are an owner of a brand or a company or a winery or whatever, I only chose products from the food and drinks industry, and also because some of the brands are very, very big, very, very popular, and most of their products might be available in almost every country of the listeners of this podcast. We start with giving you 5 strategies how to deal with criticism. I would say the easiest way is acknowledging the criticism and answering it quite quickly, actually. I mean, sometimes it takes you some hours or even some days to answer to a negative comment, a negative feedback. This is normal, guys, and it's not important to answer immediately, especially if you are in a bad mood. What I usually do is if I receive negative feedback or an email that is maybe even written in an aggressive way, I answer how I would answer in this exact same situation. And then I click save, put it in the drafts, and read it later on. Because it's, in my opinion, it's very, very important to be away from the emotions, trying to look on this specific case from another point of view with some more distance in between. Because it's never really good to act when you're right in between emotions. And this also accounts for customer feedback. So if you experience the first one, try to think about it. How can I answer to this? And if this turns out to be more and more and more, you have to have a strategy. And my example for this is the legendary New Coke backlash in 1985, where Coca-Cola launched their New Coke, and within 2 to 3 weeks, they saw a huge decline in sales, really, really bad feedback in all the media, and many, many people were just avoiding Coca-Cola wherever they could. The only thing that changed was the recipe and, of course, the taste as well. So many, many people said, no, bring back the old Coke. We won't buy the new Coke anymore. So in the end, Coca-Cola decided to say, okay, well, July 10th, we changed everything what we did. Here is your Coke back again. And they called it Classic Coca-Cola. And this is even so popular that it made it to the news a couple of years ago. Here is a 20 seconds clip from CBS Philadelphia talking about the anniversary.
One of the biggest corporate turnarounds in history. On this date back in 1985, Coca-Cola said it was bringing back its classic flavor. Now, a few weeks earlier, Coca-Cola replaced it with New Coke, and sales tanked. So when Coca-Cola Classic was released, it quickly outsold the new version, and the new version was eventually phased out. I know, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Exactly. If it's not broke, don't fix it. So Coca-Cola tried to be innovative, changed the recipe, put it into the market, and the reaction were just bad. So they reacted immediately, turned this almost disaster into a brand triumph. The thing is that even 30 years later, this was still a topic, and the classic Coca-Cola brand name description was held until 2009. And this article from 2009 from Reuters says Coke scraps classic tag from flagship cola report. So in the end, in 2009, so 24 years later, they were still feeling the impact of this campaign. And afterwards, they said, okay, right now, we're back to normal and we want to stop dealing with the fallout. The interesting thing is, this turned out to be a good thing in the end for Coca-Cola. Nevertheless, the new Coke campaign remains one of the most infamous product flops in the history of food and drinks. Link is in the show notes. Second strategy, turn your feedback into product innovation, meaning if people are telling you that your product doesn't taste good, is crap, or they don't like specific parts, parameters, whatever of this product, try to use this for product innovation and communicate it publicly, using criticism as the perfect research and development tool. Customers feel invested in the brand. They can be part of the creative process of changing, of growing the brand, and give their input. And there are several examples for that. I chose the case of Diet Pepsi, when Pepsi received feedback, and not only Pepsi, it was more like a global phenomenon that people were talking about the aspartame in drinks and that it could be dangerous. And even though it turned out that it's not super dangerous for your health to have aspartame in some products, Pepsi said, well, while decades of studies show aspartame is safe, we recognize that consumer demand is evolving and we got rid of it and exchanged it through another resource. So Pepsi listened to the customers, wanted to take some fears away, and said, we changed the recipe on our own, and this is our brand new Diet Pepsi without aspartame. The next strategy, or the next tip, is being transparent with your own mistakes. So even though it turned out to be a difficult campaign, something you made wrong, or something happened that was not meant to happen, work with this, admit the errors, explain the fixes, and involve customers in the process, in the resolution process, if possible. Mistakes can happen, and the worst response is defensiveness or silence. Especially in today's world where everybody is present on social media. And every one of us has his or her favorite tool of choice. But usually shitstorms, they're across all platforms. So try to react on that. People appreciate honesty over perfection, even on Instagram, because most of us, deep inside of us, we know that perfection is an illusion, and it can build your customers' trust, your brand loyalty with the customers through open-minded, through transparent communication. And my example for that is BrewDog, and BrewDog even stepped one step further. BrewDog acknowledged public complaints about its Punk. Punk is one of their products, the Punk IPA, and also the alcohol-free version, the Punk AF, alcohol-free, and used to feedback to double down on it, saying, okay, well, some people might not like the term, but this is our identity, this is our brand, and we show you how punk we really can be. So what they did is they had several campaigns over the last, I would say, 10 years where they showed how punk they could really be. And my favorite example is a billboard they had just close to a primary school saying, our beer, the Punk AF, sober as a and the last word, we all know what this could be, just ended with the FU. So you weren't able to read motherfucker because the billboard ended at the FU. So for the people who are watching, you can see it right now. They use this to say, guys, punk is our identity. Accept it or just go away. And people loved it. Unfortunately, they had to tack some legal stuff, and some of the ads were even banned, but it gave them visibility and also reach. And of course, if you use these campaigns not only to just be a revolutionary, but also to educate the people on the category, on the product, and show them that it is a serious product, why not? And the interesting thing is that through these campaigns, BrewDog turned critiques into advocates and got more visibility and attention. And this is the best thing that could happen. The fourth strategy I would like to give you is leverage feedback and engagement. So as soon as you receive bad feedback or just comments on your product and the people are not happy with it, try to use this to get more engagement. Include them in the creativity process actively, not in the passive way, just listening to them, how Pepsi did it, but saying, hey guys, we know that this is a concern, so please give us your creative input and we try to put it in our research and development process of the product, because product development is essential. Not only with feedback in general, but especially if you are able to include your customers into the development process, that is freaking amazing. And my best example for this is the Starbucks campaign for the holiday cups. Starbucks has created holiday cups for the last 25 years. They started in 1997. Until 2015, the cups were fine. They were liked. People just enjoyed it. That during the holiday season, Christmas time, there's always a fresh branding of the Starbucks cups. Unfortunately, in 2015, the campaign was running in parallel to the elections in the US. And due to the color, the red color of the cups, some people felt offended by the red color and didn't really like it. And Starbucks really suffered from a very, very bad shitstorm. And it got even worse. The whole story is in the show notes. But what they did is they launched a campaign in 2016, and it was called the Red Cup Contest. And what they said is, hey guys, we know that there is a problem, but let's be creative together. And they had over 1,200 responses on that, and 35 were selected and created a whole new campaign of Starbucks cups. And it's just an absolutely amazing example how to include customers in your active development process and even turn critiques into advocates again. And there's even one step further with our strategy number 5, celebrate resolution publicly. And my example for this is the campaign of Domino's Pizza. Because when you address the problem, when you know what the problem is and you heard your customer feedback, tell it to the people. Showcase your commitment to improvement, celebrate the customer-centric changes, include them with focus groups, with surveys, try to re-innovate your product, and then tell this story to the people. Public resolutions demonstrate accountability and build loyalty on a brand. And Domino's Pizza had something called the Pizza Turnaround campaign. It happened in 2009, where they said we have to change something about our image and the product, because we got so much feedback. They didn't like the pizza anymore, and they turned it into a whole development process of a brand new innovative product. They integrated their biggest critiques into a focus group and worked on that. I press play for the next 30 seconds roundabout to let you take part in this story.
Pizza, where's the love? How hard? Bread, sauce, cheese, fresh ingredients. Doesn't feel like there's much love in Domino's Pizza.
Domino's pizza crust to me is like cardboard.
Is it hard to watch this stuff?
Yeah, it's hard to watch.
So even the people that were in charge of product development were listening to those people in the focus group and said, it's so hard to watch this. But we figured out that especially the fact that people said our crust tasted like cardboard is one of the most important thing. The second with the cheese, where people said it tasted artificial. So they had to change the taste, the sauce, the cheese, and the crust. So they invited chefs to reinvent the whole product. And it turned out to be a really, really interesting campaign. It took them a couple of months to directly acknowledge the negative feedback, highlighting the recipe improvements and just putting it online and showcasing to the people, yeah, we changed a lot. We changed the crust, we changed the cheese, and right now it's a way better product. This is so smart in two different ways. On the one hand, it's a bit humorous because you see that it's not 100% serious at all. It's still like a more funny way to deal with it. And on the other hand, saying, even though this could be seen as fun, We take it seriously. We want to change something. And it was a really hard process for many of our team members. So you start feeling with them. Maybe if you have at least some empathy within you, you can even feel how hard it must have been for some of them to change the product they have originally invented or at least developed over the last years. And it turned out to be a really, really good idea for Domino's. And once again, they were able to turn everything around and people loved it. And in addition, it got so much national and international visibility and reach on social media, on TVs, on screens, everywhere, that it was free advertisement. Now let's stop this pizza movie. I don't want you to get hungry and just press pause to get you a slice of pizza. You can do that later. So this is how to deal with negative feedback and how you could integrate this in your everyday life. The problem is if one of these things really turns out to be a huge shitstorm, it's a bit more difficult to deal with this. And big brands, nobody has this in his or her blood and just thinks about it a couple of minutes and then answers. Especially in bigger companies and bigger brands, they have to have a strategy on that. And you need a different approach to that. And when you talk to consultants working with bigger brands, they usually say it's very, very important to stay calm and control the narrative. Try to acknowledge the backlash without putting fuel to the fire. Because if you do this, it can get worse. Stay professional, avoid defensive responses, and try to work with the critique in a very transparent and positive way. And one of my favorite ones, it was a bit funny as well, but I really like the idea on how to deal with the feedback in a more open-minded way. Oatly, so the oat milk company, faced criticism from dairy enthusiasts and responded with their so-called infrequently asked questions campaign. So if you go to the website of Oatly.com, it's still there. It's super funny. Do I need a permit to carry oat milk? Is oat milk only for indoors or can I use it outside too? Does oat milk come with assembly instructions? So this is more the fun way. And in addition, of course, they added the frequently asked questions thing, comparing it with dairy products, the advantages of that. And this was, for me, a really good way to communicate their mission, stay very, very close to the tone of the brand. And it's even more difficult if you have to build the whole category. This is the case for vegan products, for oat-based products instead of dairy products, and of course also for alcohol-free drinks. So it can cost a lot of money and a lot of power, resources, and also stress you the fuck out if you have to build the category. And usually not the first brand building the category is the most successful one, but at least part of the story of the whole development of a category. And this is, I would say, what Oatly also had to experience, and they did it in a very, very smart way. And education could also be a very, very good way, not only to grow the category, but also to try and work with myths, with prejudices, and just with stubborn people that even don't know what they're talking about because they have never learned it in a different way. This is one thing that I see at least once a week in the alcohol-free category. And one of the brands that managed to educate very, very successfully was Heineken, because they had a whole ad campaign. And my favorite one I'll show you in a second, where they positioned alcohol-free beer as a modern, responsible choice, responding to skeptics with a campaign that normalized the category, telling them, you can have Heineken whenever you want, especially when we talk about social pressure. And this is my favorite ad, where they show you that you are able to enjoy Heineken wherever you want. So what we're seeing is a person in a bar cheering with the others. And at the end of the queue, there is a guy with a can. And the question is cheers or no cheers. So they go back in time a couple of thousand years back where they were cheering with beer and one had milk on the cup and basically was refused. And then the same happened during the French Revolution with somebody drinking coffee or tea. And then a couple of seconds later, the burlesque time, people cheering. And there are 3, 4, 5 examples in that ad with about 75 seconds. And in the end, they just showcase that you can always have a beer cheering with people if it's a Heineken. And right now we're seeing the guy from the beginning. Now you can cheer with Heineken 0.0. So sometimes it's dealing with the prejudices on a category. Sometimes it's dealing with what is driving to people to either, in that case, drink or not to drink. And if it's the fear of being, I don't know, not accepted by your peers, this is how Heineken managed it. And there's so many other things. And another example for this is Bitburger, because Bitburger is a German brand, quite popular with the alcohol-free one, and they receive feedback such as alcohol-free beer is only for pregnant people. And what they did is said, well, yes, tested by mothers, brewed for all of you. They advertised non-alcoholic beer and showed a pregnant woman drinking a bottle of their beer. So, I mean, very controversial, and you can imagine how people reacted to that. And this is one of the more difficult ones because this is reacting on customer feedback causing a shitstorm, and hopefully they managed to respond on that, because I think with such a campaign you can plan that there will be a shitstorm. You can just prepare for that in advance. You will barely find doctors recommending alcohol-free beer below 0.05, so having 0.0 on the label, to pregnant women. I think you can use this as a marketing campaign if you're prepared for the shitstorm. 0.0 is the only category that is at least, I would say, wider accepted in society for pregnant people. Well, you just have to be prepared. That's it. But I really like the campaign. And of course, again, this is huge advertisement for the brand because you definitely get visibility and engagement on campaigns like that. The third thing, what you can do with negative feedback resulting in a shitstorm is amplifying positive voices. So find celebrities supporting your brand. And I'm not talking about paying them for supporting it. Usually this is part of the deal. But the most powerful support for your brand is if somebody says, I like your brand and I want to support it, and then you figure out how to deal with it. And celebrities might probably be the biggest ones. A brand that has been doing this for many, many years now is Beyond Meat. There is even an article from 2019 saying, look at this, growing list of all-star athletes invest in Beyond Meat. So Beyond Meat is one of these brands that really managed to showcase the healthy ideal with the brand and the enjoyment of the product with celebrities. We're talking about athletes, about musicians, even Kim Kardashian used to be a brand ambassador for Beyond Meat. And a second company that really did this in a very, I would say, creative and interesting way was Impossible Foods. What they did is they took the negative feedback, hired some people for a clip, and then just put it online. And the clip is called We Can Have Our Meat and Eat It Too. And the origin of the feedback were people telling that we might have a problem with meat, but we need our meat. Like, I can't be anything without meat. The same is what people sometimes tell me with alcohol. I have to have some alcohol in my life. And this is a personal decision and it's totally fine for everybody. But what I want to say is sometimes they just don't know better, and you can either educate the people or just react in a funny way. And this is what Impossible Foods did. 30 seconds video clip. Absolutely amazing.
America, meat has problems, and it's gonna take us, meat eaters, to solve them. So when the world says too much meat is bad and we should eat less of it, we say no, world. We should eat more. Because now we can turn plants into burgers and hot dogs. Even meatballs. Now, Plants can be meat. Come on, people. Let's punch cholesterol in the face. We're solving the meat problem with more meat. Impossible! Meat from plants!
Yeah, impossible. Meat from plants. So a study or more studies showed that America has a big problem with the meat consumption, and Impossible Foods reacted, hiring an actor and saying, hey, we answer to this study saying we eat more meat. But basically, it's meat from plants. So it's a push towards vegan alternatives, of course, towards the brand Impossible Foods and their products. And yeah, it's entertaining, guys. It's just entertaining. And when we talk about education, it does not always have to be the funny way. A brand which I basically like personally, a brand that I like very much, also because they were kind of the founder of the category alcohol-free spirits, is Seedlip. And of course, they had a lot of criticism on their brand, on their products. And my favorite one is it's just expensive flavored water. Because if you want to buy 2 to 3 bottles of Seedlip, you have to spend 100 quid on that. And of course, it's a high quality, handcrafted alternative to spirits, but just without the alcohol. But sometimes people just don't know it. It's the same with the people that think that alcohol-free wine is just grape juice. It's not. And sometimes you just have to taste it in parallel to feel the difference. And Seedlip dealt with this in a really good way because they just educated people. They also had a section called Frequently Asked Questions, and they called it 6 of your most commonly asked questions answered by Seedlip. And the first one is, what is an alcohol-free spirit? Is it the same as a flavored water? So they did education and storytelling about craftsmanship and innovation in this category, trying to educate people on the quality behind the product and that there is a difference between flavored water and the taste of an alcohol-free spirit. Because there is a very complex process involved. We are talking about very, very high quality and a totally different mouthfeel. And this is what it's all about. It's about the taste. What do you want to do with the product? If it's just for not getting dehydrated, drink flavored water, guys. But if you want the experience, the enjoyment with food pairing, with just, I don't know, social engagement with people, it has to be more than just flavored water, right? And this is the way Seedlip deals with it. And to wrap this episode up, I brought 2, I would say, case studies or some more examples. It's 2 companies in the drinks industry. The first one I discovered on Instagram, Rebels 0.0. Rebels 0.0 are also a company producing alcohol-free spirits. They're located in Switzerland. I already tasted the products and they're actually quite good. When we talk about quality, when we talk about mouthfeel, I mean, some try to replace original drinks with alcohol and some just want to be high quality alternatives and they just don't want to be compared. Anyway, what they did is they had a campaign on Instagram, what haters say about Rebels 0.0, aka our Halloween content. And they took the feedback and answered to it. So I will click right through this. The link is in the show notes. It's juice like apple juice. And Rebels responded, please tell us something we haven't heard before. The next one was, cowboys didn't sacrifice their lives for this. They answered, we apologize to the cowboy community. Must be a fake ad by a really crazy comedian. Adding real crazy comedian on my resume ASAP. So this was the guy working at Rebels. Maybe it was even the founder. I don't know. No comment is, I guess, one of the most popular comments on ads for alcohol-free products. And I like the way they responded. Our engagement rate is loving these no comments. Because it's engagement anyway. What is alcohol-free good for? For babies? Answer, no. It's good for people that know how to spell babies. Because the person in the comments spelled babies incorrectly. Sorry, but non-alcoholic alcohol is probably the most useless thing ever. As useless as this comment though. non-alcoholic alcohol. Now, that is actually and literally stupid because you're simply not allowed to call it whiskey unless it has a minimum of 40% alcohol. Answer, it's actually and literally and simply called malt blend and not whiskey. The next one is a comment that was mentioned several times. It's like watching porn on the radio, and they didn't answer to that because it was just fun to see how many people copied the comment and reacted on it. Last one, I'm only here for the stupid comments. Somebody who was really into the comment section, and the owner answered, same. So this is one case study how to really deal with bad comments, because it's not a constructive criticism. It's just what we would call a shitstorm, because people just don't know how to deal with the brand, with the products, and they really managed in a very, very good way, in my opinion. And the second one, the Free Spirits Company, probably the best thing I've seen this year. They received a comment saying drinking non-alcoholic spirits is like hiring a hooker, so a prostitute, for a hug. So what they did is they made a campaign inviting a prostitute and a comedian and giving away free hugs. But listen to it. 30 seconds.
You know, people everywhere absolutely love free spirits, and we love them back. So when they talk, we listen. Raccoon_Strangler69 says, drinking non-alcoholic tequila is like hiring a hooker for a hug. Fascinating. You know, the proper terminology is sex worker, but I think our raccoon strangling friend is onto something. Let's put it to the test. I'm here with my favorite sex worker, Stephanie Sugar. Cheers. Here at Free Spirits, we know a lot about pleasure. You're a pleasure expert, right, Steph?
I'd like to think so.
Well, what do you know about hugs?
A lot, actually. Did you know that a 10-second hug can relieve stress, ease depression, and lower blood pressure?
Really?
This means a hug can literally
increase your lifespan, literally. Okay, Steph, how about Free Spirits pays you to give San Francisco the best hugs they've ever had, and we prove once and for all that hugs are great.
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it.
So what they did is they just took her to the park and just gave away free hugs. And an absolutely fascinating, amazing campaign, reacting on negative feedback, getting more attention, more visibility, more reach, and also educating people on the positive side effects. And we're not talking about the product itself, the alcohol-free. We are talking about hugs and the positive impact. Absolutely amazing. So the link of this is also in the show notes. And to wrap this up, the dealing with shitstorms is tough, and you need power, you need patience, and you need a strategy for that. So act quickly, stay calm, engage with empathy, no matter what of the examples you want to follow. If it's really worse or even harming people, harmful to people, take it offline and use the momentum. So after resolving the backlash, create campaigns showcasing the lessons learned, the improvements you made, or just dealing with humor. So hopefully this episode was able to show you that reframing feedback and criticism can offer opportunities, can strengthen brands and their image, and build a stronger audience and connections with your customers. And it's not only talking about feedback, what I want to give you at the end of this episode. In every comment, in every reaction to what you're doing, lies the chance to learn, to improve, to connect, and to grow. So the next time you receive feedback, embrace it and think about the saying that goes, your brand isn't what you say it is, it's what customers say it is. Thank you very much for listening. Share your thoughts on this in the comments section on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on your favorite podcast player. Send me an email on podcast@pinotpixel.com. We see you on Saturday with the weekly update. Ciao, ciao.